This is the way I like to find cars. It's hard to believe this is the original interior. I mean, the carpet is like unbelievable. A GT K code is even more special because not all K codes were GTs.
So I've had this thing for 40 years practically.
24.5 mils. Maybe it got a dent in a parking lot. Everything's just the way it should be. It's a little greasy, it's a little oily, it's used, braced for impact.
Wow.
So this one part right here is worth a good chunk of change.
I guess I'm surprised that he values it as high as he did.
I'm keeping my car.
Tom.
Colin, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Thanks for bringing your car.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure.
86 GTV-6, right?
Absolutely.
I love this car. So, remind me, how long have you owned this?
I bought it in 1988, 5,700 miles on it.
And how many miles are on it now?
85,000.
You know, 1988, there were other choices out there, but you bought an Alfa, which is an odd choice.
I had an older brother who had some 60s vintage Alfas, and in fact that was the first car I ever drove. It was an Alfa Giulia Super.
Now, I can only assume you're never going to sell this car, but have you followed the market at all?
I've watched a couple of auctions on Bring a Trailer. Honestly, I can't remember what the last one got to, 25,000 or something in that order.
You've graciously offered to let me pick apart your car without you present.
Yep.
And get into the nitty-gritty and see what it's all about and see what I think it's worth. We'll get back to you in a little bit and tell you how it ends up. When I look at a car to appraise it, I look at it as if I'm buying it, as if my money's on the line and I'm gonna have to write the check because I don't like making mistakes, especially when money's involved. So let's take a look at this GTV-6 and see what it's all about. When I look at a car, the first thing I do is want just to get a feel for it, walk around the outside. I look at panel gaps again, I look at the seams, I look at how the bumpers fit, the quality of the paint. There's a little door ding on the front fender, but just looking around the car, super, super nice. I like what I see so far, but when inspecting any old car, I like to use a tool that I like to call a lie detector, and that's a paint gauge. From the factory, in this era, in Alfa Romeo, especially Italian cars, their paint was a little thicker than most. So I want to see somewhere, it should end up somewhere around 4 to 5 mils of thickness if it's factory paint, 4.5 mils. So that's right in the range of what original paint would be. So I believe this is all original back here. When we get around to the hood, 7.5. 7.5, that's too big of a variation, I think. I would suspect that this has been painted. So we'll take it, now it's 4.5 on the nose. Yeah, it wasn't uncommon for these cars being shipped in from Italy that they would get damaged in shipment or damaged on a dealer's lot. They were on boats and they were on trucks. There's 6.5 mils there. This fender is 7. So what I can ascertain is, so far, the hood and this fender have had some paint work. Now right here, a little more of a difference. 24.5 mils. Right in this section here. So if you tap on it, now 24.5 mils sounds like a lot. People think maybe that's Bondo. It's not, it's just a lot of paint. It could be a skim coat of body filler. It might have had a dent. 10 mils up here, so right in here something happened. And we have 7.5 mils here, 4.5 mils here, 9.5 there, and 4.5 there. So what I think happened was, you know, maybe it got a dent in a parking lot, that kind of thing. A kid's bicycle went down the side of it. Now what we're gonna look for, we're gonna dig around and see if we can find any rust, because that's really the Achilles heel of an Italian car. First place to look on an Alfa GTV-6 is under the hood. First place I look under the hood on one of these cars is right here. These upper body sections on the unibody, there's these little pockets where mud and water can sit. This car has none of that. Because we detected there was some paint work over here, I'm gonna take a look at that side just to make sure nothing structurally happened. Right here I can see there's absolutely no damage inside of this jam. All the factory welds, this little factory seam sealer here. Just looking at the engine compartment in general, I can tell he's had the air conditioning redone, so the air conditioning probably works great. You often see deferred maintenance, stuff that's not taken care of on old cars. Not the case here. I can see nice clean green coolant, nice clear brake fluid. I can peek at the timing belt here, it looks fresh. So if I were buying this car, I would be totally satisfied with what I see under here. A well-maintained, original, kind of untouched car. So we'll shut this and take a look at some other things. Now, Alfas have jacking points, a little frame section under here where you would slide the jack into and pick the car up. Now, because that's a box section too, water sits in there, mud sits in there, road salt, fantastic. I don't know if you can see that body mount there, that jacking point. It's as clean as the day it was made. Inner fenders, the floors, everything I can see, the bottom of the doors, everywhere these would rust, looks really good. So I don't need to dig any deeper here. Let's take a look inside. It's hard to believe this is an original interior. The seats are perfect. The bolster is perfect. The pleating is perfect. There's no wear. Clearly, when Tom gets in, he doesn't drag his whole body across the bolster. He gets in properly. The door panels are beautiful. It has this Momo steering wheel. Now, I have a GTV-6 as well. I did the same thing in the 80s and 90s. We put on a Momo wheel. Period Alpine head unit. Take a look at this. I mean, the carpet is like unbelievable. The heel pad, overall, I mean, if I were gonna put a condition scale on this interior and 10's the best, this is a 10. I knew it. I knew by talking to Tom that he would not have a bad strut holding the trunk lid up. Oh man. Original Pirelli P6 spare. This is another place these cars rust, is a spare tire well. It's shiny original paint, nice spot welds. Factory jack tucked in right where it's supposed to be. Okay, another thing Tom has, he's provided us with a pile of documentation I want to look at because that's a big part of value on an old car. A lot of cars are what I call UFOs. You don't know, there's a big gap in their history, 20 or 30 years where you don't know where the car was or who owned it. This is gold. Original purchase contract from when he bought it. Now let's see here, he paid $14,000 for the car in 1988. But look at this kind of stuff. I mean, to save the salesman's business card, the original key tag, just crazy level of documentation, handwritten service records. This is the kind of car that guys like me dream about finding, the kind of owner and the kind of history. I mean, if I were gonna buy a GTV-6, I don't think I could find one this good. I think we should get Tom back in here and maybe give him a little surprise.
I'm ready.
All right.
I hope.
Come on over, we'll just brace for impact. You always gotta do that with an appraisal.
Yeah.
I've gone over your car. I mean, I love it. It's an awesome car. You've done a fantastic job. But as you know, the whole idea here is I gotta put a number on it. I think it's more like a 3. Really nice driver car, not a show car. You said you thought you've seen one sell for $25,000. I watched that car too. That was, a car that had been completely repainted, had been modified and all that stuff. But I think if you were going to sell it, I think the car easily brings $45,000.
Wow.
I think if you have 2 people that want it in an auction scenario, I wouldn't be surprised if it did $50,000 or $55,000. How does that number hit you? Is that?
That's a lot of money, it seems to me. Mr. Comer.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you bringing it in. I mean, it's great to look at a car this nice.
I am a little bit surprised, yeah. I mean, he pointed out the remedial paintwork on the passenger side of the car, and that was actually there when I bought the car in 1988, believe it or not. I don't know what had happened. It doesn't, make me want to sell it or anything. I'm keeping my car.
Up next is a 1965 Mustang GT Convertible.
My name is Sanford Silverberg. Everybody calls me Sandy. My father purchased the car when the car was 9 months old from a used car lot.
March of '66, your dad bought it. So you guys have had it ever since?
Ever since, except for a short period of time. My dad passed away in 1994. Around 2014, the decision was made, not by my choice, to sell the car. So my brother had an acquaintance that was interested in the car. He agreed to a right of first refusal should he ever sell it again. And really one of the toughest days of my life was watching this thing going into the trailer and saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Thinking that maybe I may never have an opportunity to buy it again, but that opportunity came up. Turns out he never really drove the car. He put very few miles on the car.
Do you mind if I ask what your family sold it for in 2014?
We sold it for $29,000 back in 2014.
From 2014 and 2018, obviously we know these things increased in value. Did the fellow that you sold it to, did he take advantage of that, or was he a nice guy?
He was a nice guy. He was very reasonable. He sold it back to us for $32,000.
What I like to do now is, as scary as it sounds, be alone with your family heirloom here. I'll play with it for a little while. I promise to be gentle, and we'll get you back in here shortly and have another chat.
Great.
Sandy said it had kind of a partial restoration years ago. A lot of these cars had that too. Again, they weren't super high value back in the day, so you fix what needed to be fixed, and you didn't do a full-on restoration. Like he said, there's a little difference in color between the original paint on the hood and the repainted front fenders. A GT K-code is even more special because not all K-codes were GTs. It has aftermarket wheels, a torque thrust American wheel, not a big deal. Sandy said this was a radio delete car, which is also kind of unique. Most people optioned out a radio. This is kind of a cool thing. The other Mustangs that came with a radio delete, 65 GT350s from Shelby. It has a K-code rally pack. This add-on pack here was not standard, and it has a tachometer. Now in the non-K-code cars, they had a lower red line. This is an 8,000 RPM tach, which is specifically for a K-code. So this one part right here is worth a good chunk of change just on its own. And again, just looking around, it presents as, it's a car with 100,000 miles on it. It's been driven and enjoyed. Now again, first things I look at under the hood of a Mustang especially, we want to see that the serial number stamped in this inner apron. Right here is this K-code VIN. These cars, they're a unibody car. If they get hit in the front end, this apron will get replaced, this gets replaced, the number's gone. To the untrained eye, they would open this hood and go, ah, crap, look at it, it's greasy, it's dirty, it's got surface rust on stuff. You know what? This is the way I like to find cars. This is not lipstick on a pig. Nobody's trying to disguise anything. The car is honest. This car has been owned for 50 some years by the same family. Original K-code chrome valve covers are on it. I can see the radiator's been replaced. The original radiator is gone. That's not an inexpensive part to buy today. It's probably $3,000 to $4,000 to find a correct radiator. But in the grand scheme of things, we have bigger fish to fry. So on the side of a block of a K-code engine is the serial number of the car. What I did was I took my phone, aim it down low, and take a picture. And with my old eyes, blew up the picture and verified that that serial number is on the block. So it's the original engine. Another secondary number is right here, where we have the burn-in date. That burn-in date will coincide with the date on the steering box. It tells us when the car was built as well. All of these dates line up. So going back here into the trunk, I can see it's had new Ford quarter panels put on it. They did a nice job. It looks like they replaced some sections of the trunk floor, and I can tell over here that the trunk floor section has been replaced because it's missing the hold down for the spare tire. There should be a little hook here. The bones are here, the car is here, the history is right, the numbers all check out. It's a numbers matching 4-speed black K-code convertible with the GT package on it. This is really good stuff. So I'm curious to see what Sandy thinks, but I know what I think. So I think it's time to pull him back in here and tell him. All right, Sandy, you ready?
I'm ready.
Good news, bad news, we're part as friends.
We'll be friends no matter what.
There probably isn't a number on the face of the earth that could get you to sell this car. But if you were gonna sell it, and the whole reason we're here today is to put a value on something that is difficult to value. So using the Hagerty valuation tool condition guide, if I had to rate this car, I would rate it as a number 4. This car, obviously, older paint, it's faded, it has some modifications, but what adds to the value is how legitimate and original your car is, with the original numbers matching engine, the original transmission and the carburetor and the original K-code air cleaner. I mean, all the right stuff is here. The way it sits today is probably worth $50,000 to $55,000. the intrinsic value of the car, and what you're here for is that you enjoy it, and it puts you back in time when you drive it. So
I think my best memories are when my dad was driving it and he let me shift. You know, I was 8 years old and I was shifting it, and it was just a thrill for me.
thanks so much for bringing it out.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
It was great.
Yeah, you take care and keep enjoying.
I will certainly do that. Thank you. I can say I'm thrilled, either that or, I mean, it doesn't really matter to me what the value of the car is, but I guess I'm surprised that he values it as high as he did. So it's a part of me, it's a part of my dad. Every time he came home from work, he'd open up the secondaries coming up to our house, and I'd hear that roar, and how do you get rid of memories like that? And that's my only connection I have left with him.